I wanted to thank everybody for joining today, taking some time out. The presentation today should only take about 40 to 45 minutes. I will have time to stay on till the top of the hour for questions if anybody wants to stay on. If you do have any questions as we're going through, please feel free to use the chat box down at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody just so that we don't have to worry about background noise and those types of things. So if you do have a question, please feel free to use the chat section on the GoToMeeting toolbar, or again should have about 15 minutes or so at the end of the presentation to go over, to answer any questions if you guys want to stay on. Of course, you can always reach out to either Tom or myself as well if you want to meet separately or dive a little bit deeper and so on. So again, thank you for joining today. The purpose of the demonstration and the meeting today was just to kind of go over some of the new modules we've developed, some of the new features we developed, and of course to talk a little bit about the direction of some of the modules and where we're going with it. First things first, of course, we have upgraded the StapleWare modules to work with the new DocuWare toolkit, which is of course a web-based platform service, the REST services. So it will work actually with both DocuWare Cloud as well as on-prem solutions. So if you do have customers going either direction or both directions, and you find a use case for Deficiency Manager or any of the modules, please definitely keep in mind that these modules will work for either of those types of systems. Okay. So moving right along, starting with an existing module, not a brand new module by any means, but it does have some new features, is of course the Deficiency Manager. So with the Deficiency Manager, of course, the core function was to be able to track missing documents. And as many of you have potentially found and have come across, as well as just like we have, is that this is a fairly universal problem across different types of businesses. Tracking missing documents applies to manufacturing. You don't want to start a process or start manufacturing an order until you have the PO and the specifications and drawings and all that good stuff. It applies to human resources, of course, for onboarding. Student enrollment is another one where higher education or other types of organizations want to bring on students into the educational system. Tracking that we have all the documents for each student. We've used it for, of course, medical records in the past. We've also used it for a number of other applications as well. And so it really is a fairly universal problem, again, across different industries. And so at a very core component, being able to track those missing documents and see kind of in a task list format what's going on, what's the status of a specific one. In addition to that, of course, grouping them in a certain way that makes sense. So as you guys are aware, more than aware, I'm sure, that with things like the Task Manager, Workflow Manager, the DocuWare modules, we're usually dealing with a one-to-one, or maybe we have to staple those documents together. In the Deficiency Manager, we are grouping these documents together in a way, like if I go back to the human resources example, by employee number, right? Or maybe the employee name, something along those lines. We then overlay that list of required documents on top of it so we can see what we've got, but more importantly, we can also see what's still missing. So a great tool, a very, again, universal idea. It's a very fun tool to demo, definitely a fun module to demo, because the people that deal with that, of course, immediately identify it's a very visual tool in that regard, and of course, color-coded and so on. Now, two things we've added to this module, which are definitely exciting and worth mentioning. The first is what I call the dynamic checklist. The idea here, very simply, is that if you guys have had these conversations before or start to have these conversations, is that there's always variance, right? It seems like there's always variables that we don't necessarily account for, right? Well, these required documents are always required except for this department, or for this state where we have this office. In Washington State, it's a little bit different. We recently did this for an automobile, like a car dealership, and they had, of course, they do warranty work with different automobile manufacturers. So BMW had a different list of required documents, different from you know, Buick and GMC and Jaguar and so on. And so the idea very simply is that rather than have to create multiple tabs to account for these variables, we can simplify that into one single tab for the user and dynamically change that list of required documents based on index fields for that group of documents. So, for example, I use the car dealership example. You know, if I click on, let's say, a warranty number, right, or maybe it's a VIN number, just depending on how the customer wants to group it, but they click on a particular vehicle identification number, and when they click on that, they see all of the documents that they have and the ones that are missing. And in addition to that, that warranty is tagged under BMW. So the deficiency manager will say, oh, you know, because I see that this is for BMW, that's one of our index fields, apply the BMW list of required documents. But then I move down the list and I click on a different VIN, and that's a Lexus. And so that applies the list of Lexus required documents for a warranty. So you kind of get the idea there. We've done this with different states. So, for example, if you've got employees, or, you know, the customer, the organization maybe has branch offices in different states, that they click on one employee that's in Washington, and we get the Washington list of employee required documents, versus we click on a different employee who's from California, and we get the list that applies to California employees. So again, whether it's department, state, the automobile manufacturer, these variances or these variables occur, and so being able to account for that or dynamically adjust that required documents list based on that configuration is something that, again, really simplifies it for the end user, makes it a very simple interface, one place to check, and has been, I think, a really nice addition to the tool. So hopefully that makes sense, but the end result, again, is just making it very simple for users. Rather than having multiple places to check to accommodate these different types of deficiencies, we just simplify it into one simple checklist for them and dynamically account for that variance between different departments, different states, whatever the case may be. In addition to that, we also added the ability to generate deficiency reports. Very simply, just like in DocuWare, you generate a result list, and many of you are probably familiar with, I know a lot of our customers use this feature, where they want to export that result list to CSV, right, so that they can open in Excel or that type of thing. So same concept, except what we're doing in the Deficiency Manager is generating the deficiency list. So just like you would export a result list to CSV in the web client, you can do a deficiency list in the Deficiency Manager now, and that, of course, can be shared with other users so that they can just get a master list of everything that's deficient. So very cool additional features that have been added to the Deficiency Manager to, again, enhance the value that the Deficiency Manager can bring to an organization. Moving on to a new module, this is one that I'm very excited about, and we've seen a lot of excitement and activity with, is the document tray import. This tool is a service that will monitor document trays and either move documents to file cabinets or export to a folder from the document tray. So if you remember in the DocuWare, 5X days, or I should say early 6X, up until about, I guess it was 6.7, 6.8, where they cut things off. Active Import, of course, could monitor a basket, right, in the thick client. Well, we've lost that capability, and one of the things that we've identified in working with the new web client, and especially working with intelligent indexing, is that we want to be able to move documents out of the document tray. So what we have done is we have designed a service, again, that runs on some type of schedule, and it'll monitor the document tray, and it'll automatically move those documents to the file cabinet or to a folder. If you go to a file cabinet, you can also work in conjunction with the intelligent indexing service to keep those intelligent indexes that have been applied. In addition to that, you can set a threshold for each field based on whether it's green, yellow, or red to automatically move it or not. And so what's neat about this, and where this use case was developed, is that we've been working more and more with intelligent indexing, and our customers said, if it's green, we want it to move on. Well, after looking into this a bit further, we decided, some fields are really important. For example, in accounts payable, the invoice number might be critical. Maybe the invoice number and the date of the document are critical, but maybe the vendor name and other pieces of information aren't as important, or aren't as critical because they get filled in by auto-index later, right? So the idea was on a field-by-field basis to allow us to move documents through the process and automate the capture process, and ultimately so that the document tray is not the end result. And so I'll demonstrate this again. I've got a few slides just to hit on some of the high points, and then I'll show you some of these tools. But very simply, we had a lot of customers that did not want the document tray to be the end stop. If it was green, move it on. And so you can keep those intelligent indexes. You can also apply fixed index entries. So this is a really neat feature to be able to move it along in the process and at a field level determine, okay, if the invoice number is green or is green and green only, then move it on. You can also set a threshold that's like yellow or red as well. So for non-critical fields, you can say yellow or above. So that would include yellow and green. Or for example, if you set red, that would include red, yellow, and green. So a very cool tool to keep things moving from a document tray perspective. Again, you can apply fixed index entries. So if, for example, you have an import job and the barcode and form template that you built fails, many of you have seen where where it exports to a document tray, right? That's where the failed documents go. So you might want to move them out of there. The last bullet on here is improved document security, and this is critical because the other function that document tray import fulfills is that many of you know that document trays, you can't put permissions on them, at least at this point. And so, and they can be a bit cumbersome to work out of as opposed to a file cabinet. So if you are using barcode and forms and import configurations as opposed to intelligent indexing, again, the document tray doesn't have to be that stopgap. And so we had many customers that did not want their documents to stop in the document tray. They wanted to go to a file cabinet. And for example, what we do is just apply a fixed index entry, for example, like the status equals check me, just as a simple example. And that way the users are working out of the file cabinet. So the documents the failed documents end up in the document tray, then the document tray import moves them to the file cabinet with this fixed status so that people can use out of it, and we can control permissions. We have an audit trail of who's doing what, and it's not so open or unsecure like the document trays are. And then in addition to that, we can export to a folder as well. So maybe you needed to export it out from the document tray to another import job or another process. So kind of a simple tool, but very effective, and I think very powerful. And again, pretty excited about that one, especially as we've been doing more and more work with intelligent indexing. And then, of course, if you've got a decent volume of documents coming through, that document security is a big aspect, because now we don't have to rely on the document tray and leave some of those documents exposed. Because if someone deletes it, there's no audit trail, there's no security or the ability to restrict that delete capability, so it just really tightens or buttons that up nicely. Next tool, of course, is also not a brand new tool, but certainly has some new features. Notification management does give you the ability to send email notifications inside the organization with hyperlinks, as you would expect, just like DocuWare's email notification will do. But also you can send emails outside of the organization, and you can do this without having to create accounts for the external users. So if you have a list like a CSV list, you can import that and assign these emails to go out to outside the organization. In addition to that, you might want to attach the documents to the email as you send them out. So now we can send outside. It's very easy to manage that external communication, plus we can attach those documents to the email as we send them out. We just implemented this at a door manufacturing company where basically they're storing their receivable, their billing invoices, so their outgoing invoices into DocuWare, and notification management is taking those, attaching them to the email, and sending them out to their customers. So we cut down at least 50% of the printing and sticking in envelopes and mailing that they were doing. So, and they're continuing to, and now that they've got that process in place, of course, they're reaching out to their customers to get more and more of that. So it's completely automated, and certainly getting a nice return of investment on that process. So two really nice features there to be able to send out and do the attachments. In addition to that, you can also track missing documents with this tool. So different than the deficiency manager, you can configure that same required documents list, but rather than use the deficiency manager to go check it, we can send email notifications out. So if it's HR, for example, maybe we send that list of required documents, here's to the manager. Here's your 3 new employees, and here's what they're still missing. We can send them to the employee themselves. We can send them to the manager, the group, wherever it needs to go. But it's a little bit more proactive. So it's like a missing document notification tool that will present those missing documents back out to the users in the form of an email notification. So this works really well, especially when you're dealing with a large volume of users where maybe you don't want to use Deficiency Manager for 200 users. It also helps very well when you need to put that responsibility back on a single person, or maybe again, like whether that's the actual person, employee, for example, or maybe a manager or whoever is responsible. But now we can put it right in front of them on their mobile phone again, or a laptop with email notifications. So a different way of managing deficiencies, and certainly a nice option in addition to Deficiency Manager. Process Server is all about getting documents out of the file cabinet. So we can send documents out to a folder system or to another file cabinet. But we did add some functions here. So we've used Process Server, of course, to get documents out. Why would we do this? Well, one way would be if there is an old DocuWare system or someone is sunsetting DocuWare and they want to get those documents out of DocuWare, you can use the Process Server to export them out of the file cabinet. So that's one option. Also, very commonly, we've been utilizing DocuWare as almost like a middleware for workflow and capture before the documents and data need to be exported to another system. And so we've done this a lot in healthcare, as well as other industries where maybe they want the document or the data or both to be exported to another system for the final resting place. Or in some cases, maybe it's another document management system for an external organization. But again, the base capability is that ability to take documents out of the file cabinet and can maintain that data. So first of all, we have a nice audit trail system for exporting documents so that we update, for example, a status field from new to exported or whatever that changes a little bit cleaner so that we know what has gone. We also keep track of what failed. And in addition to that, we can send an email notification with a report so that we, again, proactively notifying that if there were successes or failures. We can also export the documents to a folder with XML data. This is important as we, again, look at sharing information, that we can maintain that metadata that's been attached to it in DocuWare, export it with that data with an XML data file so that it can be ingested by another system, whether that's in an electronic medical record system, accounting system, etc. So a nice feature there as well. And lastly is the ability to merge annotations. So we did finally add this ability. We had several people request it, but now as the documents are going out of the system, you have the option to merge the annotations to the documents on the way out. You can, of course, leave them off, so if you don't want the stamps and text notes and all that stuff on there, you don't have to, but now you can export those annotations with the documents. It'll merge them physically and export them as PDF to a folder system and folder structure. Okay. Remote capture is another module that, again, isn't brand new but has a lot of new features. We developed this module originally to monitor network folders and move documents across the network or into DocuWare. However, what we've added in is the ability to monitor, in addition to network drives and folders, but also Outlook folders. And so what we've been able to accomplish with this module now is to migrate customers who have been using network drives or using Outlook or maybe even using both to structure their documents, and they've been using it for document management. So, you see that situation where they have some kind of naming convention and they've spent a lot of time, or at least some amount of time, developing this, right? So they have their network drive, and it's the first level is year. So it's 2017, 2016, 2015, etc. Inside there is the customer name dash job number, right? And then within there they might have some subfolders, and then proposals or drawings, and then within there they have their PDFs that have been scanned and Word documents and all that other stuff. So they've spent some time doing that. Same thing is true with Outlook, right? They have, you know, the list is customer name, and then you expand that, and then it's the location name, or however they structure it. We can latch on to those Outlook folder structures as well as the network drive structures and import those documents, keep the folder names or parse out. So we do use regular expressions to parse it out. So if there's a folder or a file name that has multiple pieces of information in it, job name, -date, -document type, you can parse that out and map that to the fields in DocuWare. So what's really cool about this is when you're presenting to a new customer, especially if they've spent a lot of time and resources scanning and getting this stuff in here, we can move that stuff over and migrate it into the DocuWare system. And we've done this a number of different times now with a couple of different customers and have had some really good success. And again, we don't lose that effort that they put into naming and some of those conventions. Now, there's typically some cleanup to be done, but I think, you know, all of the customers that we've come across, you know, understand that you know, because they've been putting it in an unstructured repository, that there might be some cleanup. But you can also go out and grab, you know, chunks of data at a time and actually go evaluate those systems before you do the physical import. So some really nice tool. Again, really allows you to hit the ground running, and it's a really attractive prospect for a new customer to take that data that they've already scanned and spent time building and bring that right into the DocuWare system. Stapler, of course, is an oldie but goodie, one of our first modules, or our very first module, I should say, to be able to staple or clip documents together in a file cabinet automatically, so users don't have to pull those documents out into a document tray, staple them, clip them, restore it, delete the originals out of the file cabinet, and so on. So we take, you know, even with customers that even just have a decent volume of documents where they want them bundled together, this will automate that process. And we do have the option to staple or clip. Staple only works with PDFs. So just like with DocuWare, when you're in the document tray and you want to staple or you have the option to clip, same exact idea. So we can either staple or clip those documents together. We can group them by one or more fields, by invoice number, or maybe it's account number and document type. However you want to group those together, you can do that, and DocuWare will, or the stapler will automatically go through and either staple or clip those documents on a schedule that you determine. The other thing that's really cool about the upgrade to the stapler is that we're able to process a really high volume of documents in a single pass. Before, we were really limited by the GAPI toolkit, that we weren't able to pass that 10,000 mark. And so what we've been able to do now since the upgrade of these modules is we can do several million documents in a single pass. And we recently tested this with a customer that we migrated from one existing document management system into DocuWare, and they had a lot of stuff that they did want clipped, or excuse me, stapled together. And so we were able to go through about 6 million, a little over 6 million documents in less than 4 hours. So not only is it able to take on large jobs, it's able to do them very efficiently, very fast. And so obviously a big time saver when you do need to reassemble those documents, and if the only other option is to manually bring those documents out to document trays and so on, can be very time consuming. The Web Client Integration Tool is an alternative to Smart Connect, and we decided to keep this around because we did believe and have found some use cases where this is a nice alternative to have to Smart Connect. It does not work from a smart indexing perspective. It only works from a searching perspective. But the main difference is that there's no screen mapping required. And what this means is that when you deploy the Web Client Integration Tool, the users are highlighting what they're looking for and pressing a function key to go get it. So we're not mapping to QuickBooks, we're not mapping to Sage, we're not mapping to Outlook, we're not mapping to these different applications. We're simply assigning a function key to a field in a particular file cabinet, and the user initiates what they want to look for by either highlighting, or they can use an OCR crosshair tool to OCR what they're looking for on the screen. What's really cool about this is that you can reuse that same button for any application. So if they get an invoice number, for example, if you want to build an invoice number lookup to the accounts payable file cabinet, they're in the ERP system. They select or highlight the invoice number, they press those documents, and then press F6 and they go get it. So we're not mapping to specific windows, we're just allowing the user to kind of ad hoc select what they're looking for and go retrieve those documents. And this has worked really well for definitely for mainframe type systems, but again also those types of situations where maybe it's Excel spreadsheets, Outlook emails, ERP systems. There's a wide spectrum of different applications, and that mapping doesn't necessarily fit the bill. So definitely easy into a demonstration here is the connected Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains. Now, this is a tight integration. We did use the Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains Software Developers Toolkit to create this, but it only works with the Great Plains version of Dynamics. So many of you maybe have seen, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, Dynamics Solomon, Dynamics Nav, Dynamics Ajax. There's a whole flavor of different accounting systems and other types of systems that Microsoft either developed or went out and bought. This integration specifically only works with Great Plains, but for those customers where they want that tight integration, and I'll explain that and I'll show that here in a few minutes, we are actually embedding our links within the Dynamics windows. So we're putting them in the menu. So it's not like Smart Connect where there's a button. We are using actually Dynamics shortcut keys, and we're using their menus. So it is embedded within their windows and forms, and makes it easy and very accurate, very reliable to store and retrieve documents from the Dynamics interface. From a deployment and training standpoint, it's outstanding. There's actually nothing to install. There's a configuration file that you build from at least one workstation, and then you simply have to have the IT people copy that out to the Great Plains program folder directory on all the computers, and that's something they can easily push out with any type of deployment system, software deployment system, or even group policy through Microsoft Active Directory. So very easy to deploy. Training is a breeze too, because again, it's right embedded into the Microsoft Dynamics interface. And looks like it's part of Dynamics GP, so very attractive and a very nice tool to be able to demonstrate, and also again nice to have that tight integration with a major accounting system like Great Plains. Okay, so what I'd like to do is go ahead and demonstrate a few of the modules here. I know many of you have seen some of these. I want to show a couple new ones, but also would like to show some of the new features of some existing ones. So the first module I want to show is the document tray import. So again, I'm really excited about this one. This came directly from our customer feedback and definitely from more than one customer. Very simple to configure, and I think I'm going to select the invoices one, right? So we're getting the accounts payable incoming invoices are coming in here, and this is an intelligent tray, an intelligent document tray using intelligent indexing. Then I choose my destination. Is it a file cabinet or a folder? In this case, I want to go directly to the file cabinet, and then you'll notice here it says, do you want to keep intelligent indexing fields? So this is where I can tell it, yes, I'm using intelligent indexing, and yes, I want to keep whatever StapleWare recognizes. Based on that, you'll see down here, I can prioritize each field in the file cabinet. So down here, I have my list of all of the fields, and based on how I've configured intelligent indexing, you'll see I've left some of these blank, like document type, you know, vendor code, location, etc. These are things I'm not trying to list off the document with intelligent indexing. But for me, the critical item is the document number, which is the invoice number, and I've set that to green. So only documents that have a green invoice number, a green rating, or a green threshold on the invoice number or document number are going to pass the document tray. In addition to that, the document date, the document total, and the vendor name have to be yellow or above. So it does work on a threshold perspective where if you choose yellow, it includes yellow and green, of course. But this is how I control what gets passed along. In addition to that, you know, and then of course if I leave it blank, then it just will ignore that. In addition to that, we can also add fixed index entries. So, for example, in addition to the intelligent indexing, I'm going to fill in a static value of invoice for the document type, status equals new, and route to equals admin. Obviously, you configure this to meet that way. In addition to that, you can also give intelligent indexing fields priority over the fixed fields. So if you are extracting or identifying the document type, you can put in a fixed field but have intelligent indexing overwrite them, or vice versa, where the fixed index entry obviously just overwrites it. And then lastly is just the schedule. So you run this thing on a schedule every 2 minutes, every 10 seconds if you want, and this thing will run, again, does run as a service, will connect and move those documents where you want them to go. The last thing I'll mention is if you are using intelligent indexing and the document is currently being processed by intelligent indexing when this kicks off, it will wait until that process is complete. So if for example, this job runs on a 2-minute interval and there's a document being processed, it will ignore that document during this pass, and then it'll catch it on the next one once that's completed. So we do grab not only the intelligent indexing information, but also the status of whether it's been run, you know, if it's completed, and we won't process it or move it until that actually has been completed. Okay. So very simple to configure, but again, a fairly powerful tool, and I think a nice addition to the StapleWare modules. The next tool is, of course, the deficiency manager. So I mentioned, you know, the same core product where we're grouping documents by a certain field in the file cabinet. In this case, you know, this is employee name, and when I click on that, I can, of course, see the documents I have. I also see those documents that are still missing. So we overlay that list on top of each group and show what's there and what's not. You can, of course, double click on these to actually view those documents if you want to be able to see them or the user wants to be able to view them. And of course, as I move down the list, then it applies it to each of my groups here, so I can see, you know, who's missing what and very easily manage that. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, you'll see here that we've got employees with different departments. So based on that, we can apply a different list of required documents. So in this example, purchasing has a different list of required documents than construction, and different from the accounting department, and so on. So this makes it very easy to keep everything simplified, because again, you might have some variables or variances between different departments or different states, or again, whatever the case may be. So we can apply that different list, and rather than there be multiple tabs for each department, we keep them all in one place and account for those variances dynamically. Okay. Lastly, if I want to be able to export this data, the export report option is up here, and I can generate that CSV option. So I go to my new employees configuration and I generate that report. And again, just like in StapleWare where you're generating a CSV of a result list, I'm generating a CSV of my missing document result list. So this is a list of just those things that are still missing, not the things that are present. And you can see them grouped by how we've grouped the deficiency manager, or configured the deficiency manager here. And I simply save that as a CSV file somewhere on my computer. Okay. close that. Thank you. The last, second to last thing I want to show is the notification management. So comparing this notification with deficiency, from a deficiency standpoint, we can also send these email notifications to track missing documents. So an example of what some of these look like, if we go back to the HR example, here you can see the same tab we were just looking at, but in email form. So I might want to send this to the manager that's responsible and say, hey, here's all your new employees that are still missing one or more of these documents. And you can see you can color code and customize the email messages a little bit here. You can insert hyperlinks, so this will actually be a hyperlink to all of Ralph's documents in DocuWare, so I can, we can insert those links or multiple hyperlinks within the message body. Insert as many fields from the file cabinet as you want to, as well as that list of missing documents. So as we scroll through here, we see the different list of required documents for each employee, all kind of separated, and again, you can kind of customize how that works. A little bit different look and feel, or a different application, like from a more of an accounting perspective. Here the following invoices are still missing required documents. So we're still missing a couple of things for this vendor. Here's the due date, the invoice number. I can click on that link to go directly to that invoice if I need to, as well as the invoice date, etc. So again, you can customize this based on the workflow, and rather than have the deficiency manager to check, this would be more proactive, but also sending, maybe putting the onus back on the individual who's responsible or the manager, etc. In addition to that, we can also send the emails as attachments, as you see here. So we can bundle those up as PDF and export them and send them, again, outside of the organization if we need to as well. Okay. Lastly is the Great Plains integration tool. So I did want to just briefly show this as an alternative, or basically how this tool works as well. So within the Great Plains environment, you can map, very similar to Smart Connect. The user or the organization can customize where they want to link Great Plains to DocuWare. So part of the setup of this tool is understanding where they want those integration points to be. Where do you want to be and be able to store documents to DocuWare? What windows or areas of Great Plains do you want to be where you want to be able to look up documents? And then, of course, how are we going to link those? A very common one that we use is the transaction by vendor. Every customer that we've got using this, at least that I've been involved in, has used this. And very simply, this is like their vendor inquiry, right? So if they need to look up an invoice, they go to Great Plains and they search it by the vendor name. So I go find Beaumont Construction and I see the history of all those invoices. I see I've got a couple that are open still, and I've got a couple that are just a historical or closed account. Once I click on this, I can dive into that specific invoice and see the details of it, line items, how we paid it, etc. And then our lookup item is embedded in the additional menu within Great Plains. So you can see here, the user can simply click on that. We can also do shortcut keys, and those can be displayed right here with the shortcut key as well. But very simply, we can put those links in there. You can name them whatever you want. I click on the button and it goes and gets that invoice for me, doing a lookup of the document number, in this case 10,501 here. So it goes and displays that for me, and I can see, of course, there's my invoice, and of course here's all the information that was linked to it as well, the index entries. So again, just an example of that, but this ability to embed it into the Great Plains interface makes it, again, a very tight integration. We're not doing any screen scraping or capture, any type of OCR capture. It is pulling the data directly from Great Plains, so it is a nice tight integration with that system. Okay. Very similarly, you can store documents, same type of thing where you can click on the additional menu and you can attach documents, whether those are on the computer already. They can be stored in a document tray. So if there is a document that's already scanned, for example, from an MFD, and I want to store that invoice from a document tray, I can do that. I can store it from my computer somewhere or wherever I need to do that. So here it'll go out and get my list of document trays. I can find my invoice and go ahead and store that document very easily from the Great Plains interface as well, and capture information, you know, do the smart indexing type function at the same time. Okay. Excellent. So that completes the presentation and the software demonstration. So I did actually make it on time this time, so that's fantastic. Before I open it up, I just wanted to close out with a few things. The first is, of course, thank you for joining today. I appreciate you guys carving out some time to just take a look at some of these modules. I really hope it was beneficial and helpful to kind of see some of the things that we've developed, some of the new features, some of the new modules. In addition to that, all of the modules are posted, and you can download the software from our website, just StapleWare.com. You can download not only the software, it comes with a 30-day trial. You can download the brochure, so like a customer-facing brochure, as well as a quick start guide, which will help you install, configure, and actually deploy the system. It has some example configurations and that type of thing. So all of that, again, is at StapleWare.com. If you do need an NFR license, for example, if you need more than 30 days, you know, then definitely contact myself or Tom. We'll get you an NFR license. You can put it on your VM to demonstrate the software, that type of thing. We're more than happy to do that. And if your customer wants to try a module for 30 days, you know, please feel free to reach out to us. You can certainly download it, install it in their environment, and try it for 30 days. So however we can help, you know, please feel free to go directly to the site. If you want some help configuring things, you know, definitely reach out and let us know. We're more than happy to help with just demonstrations, helping you set up your own demonstrations, helping to set up like a proof of concept or whatever that might be. So thanks again for your time today. I will open it up now for questions, and so I'll unmute everyone. So again, I'm available to stay to the top of the hour to answer any questions you guys do have. If you don't, again, please feel free to reach out at any point in time, and we'd be happy to answer those questions for you. But thanks everyone for joining, and again, if you have any questions, please feel free to fire away at this point.